What's the best way to survive Fallout? Where should you go? What should you do? And what skills should you learn to survive out in this post-apocalyptic wasteland? Well, today we're going to be putting together the Wasteland Survival Guide just for you. Hello Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that doesn't want to set the world on fire, so help me out by clicking that subscribe button. It definitely won't launch anything terrible. Nope, nothing at all. So it's that time of year again, folks, where Film Theory talks about a video game IP because they keep making them into movies and TV shows. And today, we're headed back into the wasteland that is Fallout. The second season of the show just wrapped up on Amazon Prime, and honestly, I'm so impressed with how the quality of this show has stayed so steady. They really have something special on their hands, huh? If you don't know, Fallout takes place in an alternate future that's themed around the 1950s. The timeline diverged at some point, and everything was powered by nuclear technology. But unfortunately, a resource war over oil led to a great war where thousands of nuclear bombs were set off, basically destroying the world. And each Fallout story is set in the, well, fallout of that post-apocalypse. It's one of my favorite franchises ever, and I've dropped hundreds of hours into modding these video games. Oh yeah, and I guess a couple hundred hours playing them too. But with the show's second season wrapping up and just how difficult it seems to live out here in the wasteland, I wondered, how would you best survive out in the Fallout? What strategies could you employ? Where would you want to go? And what skills should you want to learn?
Now wait a gosh darn minute here.
Oh my, everybody, it's Tom, host of our sister location Game Theory. Get out of here, this one's mine. Fallout's a TV show now.
True, but if you'll recall, we made a truce over on Game Theory because it looks like the Fallout games and the TV show are really connected. The show looks like it's going to be canon to the games, and so we used it to help figure out the canon endings of those games.
That we did. You can go check that out once this video is done, by the way.
So it makes sense for us to be looking at how to survive Fallout by using information from both the show and the games too, right?
Yeah, sure, why not? It'll be fun, and all the best Fallout characters have companions anyway. So with that, loyal theorists, let's leave the vault and figure out how to survive Fallout. So not everyone's journey in this wasteland is going to be exactly the same, and you're gonna need slightly different strategies depending on when and where you start. So player one, let's imagine you're an average Joe before the Great War. So you're a doomsday prepper. It's 2077 and you know the big one's coming.
There are over 12,000 nuclear warheads.
And they are ready to drop all around the world. Total nuclear annihilation is just around the corner, and if you want to survive the initial blasts, well, your options are limited.
Regardless of who or where you are, you're going to want to prep and hope for the best. Stockpiling as much clean water and cram and Blamco mac and cheese as you possibly can. It's also best to build up a small arsenal if you can, since you're going to want some firepower in the wasteland.
Some families in the Fallout universe had personal shelters hidden under their homes or in their backyards, like the Turnquist family in Fallout 4 or this jerk from the TV show. If you go this route, it's best to build the shelter underground and out of thick layers of concrete and bricks, since that'll do a solid job of stopping a lot of the radiation released by the initial blasts of the bombs. But if you're unable to make one of these yourselves, well, you do have other options. Now, if you get injured out in the wasteland, or even if you're in a vault, your options are going to be limited if you're not carrying around like a stim pack. But it would be easier to get help with the sponsor for today's theory, ZocDoc. So I've talked about this a couple of times, but I hurt my back at the beginning of last year, and it basically took me out of commission for like weeks. If you've ever had a minor lower back injury, you'll know that there are no minor lower back injuries. It feels like you've gotten impaled on a pole, and given that I had just moved and how insane the American healthcare system is, well, I didn't have a primary care doctor yet. But that's where today's video sponsor, ZocDoc, came in handy. ZocDoc is a free website that helps you find and book high-quality, in-network doctors so you can find someone you love. Just to be clear, they're not giving you the care themselves, they're linking you up with professionals who know what they're doing. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states. Whether you're looking for dermatology, dentistry, primary care, eye care, or one of the other 200 plus specialties offered by ZocDoc, you can easily search by specialty or symptom to build a care team that's right for you. I've actually used ZocDoc to help find my PCP, and I'm so happy I did, since they helped me get back up after that injury, and without the drip of buff out that Lucy gets in the show. ZocDoc is also super easy to use. You can filter by who accepts your insurance, how close they are to you, and by ratings from other patients. You can even book everything online instead of over the phone. You can see actual appointment times in the app, and you can choose one to click and book your visit. And the appointments can happen fast, sometimes within just a few days. So if you want to stop putting off the appointments and get the care you need from real professionals, go to ZocDoc.com/thefilmtheorists, click the link in the description, or scan the QR code on screen to find a top-rated doctor today. Thanks again to ZocDoc for sponsoring this theory, and with that, let's head back out into the wasteland and how to survive Fallout.
First up, there's the Pulowski preservation shelters scattered throughout the Americas. These were low-budget options that were supposed to shield you if bombs dropped when you were stuck in traffic or on the side of the road or something like that.
Unlike those other guys, the sensible folks at Pulowski Preservation Services have created an affordable line of personal protection products to make sure no one gets left behind.
The problem with these is that they basically don't work at all. They were a total scam. If you search for these in-game, they're often crammed with the skeletons of those who tried and failed to survive in them. So, back to the drawing board.
And I mean, come on, this is a theory about Fallout. I'll stop burying the lead and talk about the vaults. Yeah, before the war, the company Vault Tech collaborated with the US government to create Project Safe House.
Where will you be when the atomic bombs fall? You can secure your family's future by reserving a spot in a state-of-the-art underground vault from Vault-Tec.
In effect, these were a bunch of giant vaults designed to keep everyone inside safe from all of the radiation and nastiness happening outside. There were 122 of these things that we know of, built throughout America and Canada, and if you're looking to survive the bombs, to be honest, this is gonna be your best bet.
The vaults were mostly secure. Most had hefty food supplies and ways to restock them. Most had water chips to provide clean drinking water, and they provided community and entertainment to keep you from going insane.
But of course, there was a dark side. In this capitalist hellscape, nothing came without a catch. And if you've watched the Fallout TV show, well, you'll know that Vault-Tec wasn't actually all that interested in protecting anyone. They saw the vaults as a way to perform as many inhumane experiments as possible for their own nefarious purposes. And some of these were disgusting and evil. For example, Vaults 68 and 69, nice, each had their own starting population of 1,000 people, but in 68, only one of them was female, and in 69, only one of them was male. Obviously, that led to a lot of problems, death, and I just really don't want to imagine. Then there's Vault 4, where 30 people were locked underground with a panther, or Vault 77, where it was one dude and a box of puppets. He almost certainly went crazy because of that. And of course, there's also Vault 108, where the original experiment went completely off the rails, and the whole place got filled with a bunch of clones of a dude named Gary.
Gary. Gary!
That being said, not every vault had you getting mauled in the face by a panther. Every experiment has to have a control. So there were actually 17 vaults that were exactly what was written on the tin. Vaults where you'd be safe, and everything operated completely as intended. They were well stocked, had normal amounts of people, and there was no sciencey nonsense happening in the background. And after a predetermined amount of time, the door opened and the vault dwellers were released into the real world. We actually see such a vault at the beginning of Fallout 76.
But since there were only 17 of these things, your odds of being accepted into one are pretty slim, just 14%. Are those odds good enough for you to try? Well, it really depends on the individual person, but it's a genuine way to try to survive. And even if you get into one of the less good vaults, well, you're still probably gonna do better than the people up on the surface. Which brings us to our next example survivor here, Player 2. You're stuck on the surface when the bombs drop. So, well, first off, given the sheer amount of bombs that we know dropped, 12,000, and what we see out in the wilderness in every single game, this isn't going to be a situation where you're able to find a place on Earth that's completely untouched by the Great War and its fallout. Badum-tish. I mean, that's kind of the whole theme of the franchise, right? But we can use context clues to figure out where you don't want to be. For example, it's probably best to live as far away from potential bombing targets as possible, and in this case, that's going to be major cities. Yeah, shockingly, military bases bases seem to have been more or less left alone from what we can see. While in the TV series, we see at least 3 bombs get dropped on downtown LA all by itself.
DC was also hit by multiple warheads. Boston got hit by a couple, you get the idea. Though we don't have a comprehensive list of every city hit, maps like this one are often pointed to by the Fallout fan community as likely targets for the bombs. So you're gonna want to avoid big cities, state capitals, or really anything that's bigger than a village, because really, the only major hub of civilization left, more or less untouched, was New Vegas. And the only reason it wasn't bombed to oblivion was because the eccentric Robert House built an insane anti-missile defense system for the city. More or less, rural communities are where you're going to want to go. Though that's not to say they're going to be entirely safe. I mean, you can see that just from the Appalachia we explore in Fallout 76. Despite being spared from most of the nuclear carnage because of its lack of targets, radiation still made its way into the mountains and also caused sicknesses like the Scorched Plague to ravage the landscape.
And what's more, a lot of the local urban legends and cryptids in this universe, so like Mothman or Bigfoot, are real and can also get supercharged by radiation. Like I said, this is about finding the least bad spot you want to stay. You are not going to be wanting to go south and live in like Florida or Louisiana, because just imagine what the radiation is going to do to those gators. And the Pacific Northwest might seem great because of the abundance of water, but the weather is probably going to be supercharged too. It rains a lot in this area because of the rain shadow effect coming off the Cascade Mountains, so radioactive rain all the time? No thank you. Honestly, the best places to end up are probably going to be somewhere in the Midwest United States, close to the mountains where the rivers and snow runoff could give you an abundance of water. There's also a lot of space for you to get away from the cities that were bombed and any factions that might pop up after the war. A lot of farmland for you to grow your own food and other crops. A lot of game to hunt so you can have a somewhat replenishable source of meat. And there aren't going to be any terrifying or out of the ordinary animals that could mutate into uniquely terrible creatures. Like, sure, you're going to get wolves and bears and that sort of thing, but pretty much everywhere in the United States is going to have that sort of thing. Now, for a while, I actually thought that the best place to end up might actually be somewhere in Canada. See, in the Fallout universe, Canada was annexed by the United States and most of its people were put into internment camps. Man, I sure can't imagine that happening IRL.
I thought Fallout was supposed to be fictional.
Anyway, the problem with Canada is that it's going to get cold in the winter. That's pointed out as a problem even before the bombs fell on the show. But, I mean, its lack of big targets might make it a good option if you can make it there, have a ton of clothes to layer on, and don't mind hunkering down for months at a time. Okay, so you've settled down in an area outside of the blast zones, probably in the Midwestern United States. You're in a rural community, or you're just straight up living alone like a hermit. Suddenly you get the news. The bombs have dropped, and even though you're far enough away from a military target that you're likely safe,
well, let's not take any chances. You haven't been immediately vaporized, but obviously that's not the only thing from a nuke that can kill you. There's a real danger with the fallout too, or the residual radioactive material that falls out of the sky after the nuclear blasts. This stuff is dangerous, and given the sheer number of bombs, will be everywhere. It can cause radiation poisoning, blindness, burns, loss of limbs, cancer, and even death. So we want to limit exposure as much as possible. So head on into your shelter, slam the door, head down into your well-stocked basement, and wait out the end of the world. But that's only step one.
See, just to be safe, you're going to want to dispose of any clothes you are wearing up on the surface, because radioactive fallout can cling to clothes like this. The vaults will have fancy jumpsuits to change into, but really, any clothes you have stored down in your bunker will be good. Then, after this, well, settle down for a bit. You don't even want to think about going outside for at least 24 hours, according to the International Commission of Radiological Protection. But realistically, you should prepare to be down here for at least a month, just to be safe. And when you do eventually leave, well, the world's gonna be changed. Which brings us to player 3 here in our example, a wastelander. The bombs have fallen, and now you're just trying to survive up on the surface, with raiders and rad roaches and everything in between out to kill you.
Even if you were held up out in the rural Midwest US, with tons of supplies and weapons, well, you're gonna need to take up some new hobbies if you want this to be sustainable for you. Big ones: farming and hunting. Yeah, we've mentioned them a bit already, but being able to make your own food is going to be huge once all of the rations from your random nearby grocery store have been picked clean. Thankfully, many edible plants survived the bombs falling, even though they might look a bit different. Things like carrots, corn, and melons are mostly the same, and now there's new plants like potatoes, which is a hybrid between a tomato and a potato, and there's mutfruit, which is a kind of apple mixed with a crab apple.
I'd also remember some basic water purification strategies. It's gonna be difficult to get any radiation out of it without some heavy-duty machinery memory, and I mean lack of pure water, is the driving force behind the story of like 3 of the main Fallout games. But if you can, remember this. First off, if you're getting water from a river, well, if you actually dig a small ditch about a foot or 2 away from the water on the banks, that water will likely filter through the dirt and puddle up in this hole, which you can then collect. That's going to filter out any major contaminants like sediments or minerals or stuff like that. And you absolutely need to boil any water you drink or use to cook, because that would kill off any germs or parasites in the water that would be too small to be filtered out. This might seem like an unimportant or an easy to miss step, but it is important to do. This stuff can kill you. Now, while you have your location covered, you're geared up with weapons, have your small farm going, and are in an area with a lot of game you can hunt, well, the next thing you're going to want to do is find a community. Yeah, surviving on your own can be done. We see a lot of loners out here in the wasteland, but it'll be much easier if you don't have to go it alone.
Now, there are a few groups you could join, but each have their own advantages and disadvantages. The Brotherhood of Steel are nationwide and have a lot of resources since they were born out of a group of US Army survivors. But they also get really extreme and religious about technology and killing anyone that they consider abominations, which is not great. There's also Caesar's Legion, but they're terrible and you might just get killed for a dumb reason. Don't go with them. The NCR out west is pretty solid and resembles the government from the pre-war, but they also get their butt handed to them a lot. Hell, there are even raider gangs you can join or work with if you have 0 morals left.
But the big problem with these groups comes on the other side of that coin. Sure, a lot of them are going to have safety in numbers, but once they get too big, they draw a lot of attention your way, enough to get the aggression of other rival factions. We see this countless times in this universe. The NCR got too big and butted heads with Caesar's Legion in New Vegas, before Hank and Vault-Tec straight up blew their capital, Shady Sands, off the map. The Brotherhood of Steel goes to war against the Enclave and the Institute in Fallouts 3 and 4 and have a good chance of getting wiped off the map as well. You get the idea. So to avoid that drama, you're going to want to start a smaller community of fellow survivors. Sure, you won't have as strong numbers, but sometimes trust is more valuable than that. And being able to avoid the attention of these bigger dogs in the park will likely have you survive longer.
We kinda see this in Fallout 4 with the Minutemen. They're one of the main factions that none of the others really have any beef with. And once they find a competent leader with the player character, they build up small communities that are able to protect themselves from raiders and gunners and alike.
So it looks like you got a pretty good setup going here. You're in a relatively safe area, you have a farm, a source of water, weaponry to protect yourself, and people you trust in your community. Great, you have really solid chances to survive the fallout. But, well, there's one last thing you could do that's, well, it's a bit unconventional. Enter player 4. So no matter what, when you're in the wasteland, you're probably going to be getting dosed with a lot of radiation. It's a constant threat in the games, and the only cure is Radaway. But even then, the long-term effects are probably not going to be great. So the best way to survive in this irradiated world of Fallout? It might just be becoming a ghoul. Okay, I know that sounds ridiculous, but just hear me out. Ghouls are incredibly sturdy. They can take basically any hit as long as their brains are still intact, and as long as they get some radiation, they can heal from most wounds. I mean, just look what happened to Coop in the TV show. At the beginning of season 2, he heals a wound on his neck using a fusion core emitting radiation, and then he got shish kebabbed by a giant metal pole, only to be up and walking again after a friendly super mutant shoved some uranium in the hole to let it heal. That basically makes ghouls like Coop video game protagonists. And on top of the healing, it'll be much easier to find things that you can eat as a ghoul. Their digestive tracts are incredibly resilient, so they're less likely to get sick from spoiled or rotten food, or irradiated meat from creatures that you're gonna have to hunt. Plus, well, ghouls are a lot like their zombie inspirations and don't mind munching down on meat that's a little more close to home.
Sometimes fella's gotta eat a fella.
And as long as you're okay losing one of your main senses, well, since ghouls don't really have noses, they might not be able to smell the terrible food they're eating anyway. And since smell and taste are so intimately connected in your senses, you can basically ignore any terrible tastes you encounter.
And ghouls can live way longer than normal humans. I mean, Cooper Howard's been around since before the bombs fell, and you can find a kid who seems like he's been trapped in a fridge for about as long in one of the games. And there's even a crime boss, Eddie Winter, who became a ghoul willingly before the bombs even dropped, thinking it would be his best chance to actually survive nuclear annihilation.
The right kind of radiation exposure at the right amounts, it can change human cells, mutate them. Baby,
I can live forever.
Now, of course, there are some downsides with your skin and hair melting off, and a lot of people aren't going to like you. I mean, the Brotherhood of Steel basically shoots you on sight. That's not great. And it looks like you might have to take whatever this stuff is for the rest of your life if you don't want to lose your mind.
Well, that's not really a thing in the game, so who knows what the actual mechanics of that are and if every ghoul needs to take it.
And if you want to survive, and survive for a long time, well, maybe all of those things are a small price to pay with a world set on fire. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. And if you haven't already, make sure you go check out our sister location Game Theory. Tom and I just did a collab where we tried to figure out what the canon endings for the Fallout games were using clues from the TV show, so it's a lot of fun.